Hey everybody, Ramey here, and today I want to talk about something that I just absolutely love, virtual reality. One of my favorite things to do, probably over the last 2 years is play around with my virtual reality headsets because they're a lot of fun. I can impress a lot of people with them. They always have a blast. My kids love them even though I really limit their time with them a lot. I let them play a couple minutes a month. I just want to talk about it today. I want to talk about the current state of virtual reality. What is virtual reality? A little bit about the history of it. So let's go. All right. So in the 80s, and I always go back to the 80s because first of all, that's when I was a little kid, and that's when tech just started booming, right? With the Apple computers and all kinds of neat stuff. We really started to see the future. So we had these grand ideas of what virtual reality was going to be like in the 80s and 90s, right? Companies came out with some VR headsets, and you looked at these commercials, if I saw this in the 90s, I would have begged my parents to get it for me, which they totally didn't because I never had a VR headset in the 80s or 90s. But, I wanted to play with these things. They just looked so cool and so neat. It was the future was there and you'd be able to do this. And we had all kinds of different movies out there. This is from the movie The Lawnmower Man, which is a movie about a guy who becomes really, really smart with some drug and virtual reality combined and is able to turn his mind into the machine and stuff. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we thought, this was really science fiction and really a stretch, but we thought this virtual reality stuff was going to get here. And it never did, right? In the 90s, we were like, where is it? And it just didn't come. And then 2000 came and we were scared of the big 2000 crash and the lights didn't go out and we still didn't have virtual reality. Then in 2005 I was like, where's VR? And we didn't have it. You could go to Disney World or Universal Studios and ride on a kind of virtual reality type ride, but it just was not available to people. You could not get a virtual reality headset. 2010, late 2000s, 2010, 2012, I started to see news virtual reality headsets coming and different companies starting to invest in this stuff, and I was really excited for that. I was really happy to finally see, hey, maybe we're going to get this stuff. So what did we get? Well, we got Oculus Rift development version. Oculus was a small company, a startup, and they gave us this development version of what virtual reality could look like. And it was kind of cool. It showed us a glimpse of hey, we're going to have this at some point. But it was a beta version. At that point, it seemed like there were all of a sudden, several companies were all of a sudden developing virtual reality headsets, and they all came out with their first-gen version. The first-gen versions were okay. And let me talk a little bit about them. So first of all, there were tons of wires coming out everywhere, and to run these things, it took I would say it would take me an hour to 2 to 3 to a whole day getting it to finally work. There were so many problems. So then we came out with our next gen devices, which was the HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and they were really the two big ones. And they were kind of cool, but again, they had some wires and stuff like that. But finally, we got to this point, which is where we are today. Where we are today, you can see this guy in the picture. We have headsets. This is the Oculus Quest. This headset has no wires on it. None. No wires whatsoever. We have hand controls. No wires, hand controls. I play this. I don't need a computer at all to run it. So this is where we are with the technology. So really, really, really cool kind of where we came from with all these wires, all these, multiple companies competing, all these different headsets, and now we're finally at the point. So we're finally at the point, this new headset, and I did a review for Oculus Quest. It came out a little while ago, but we're finally at the point where virtual reality is where it should have been when it was first released. It took a few generations of people buying into it and spending money to really, get into virtual reality. So what is it? What is it like watching this stuff? What do people look like? What does it feel like when you're doing it? So one of the things I explain to people, and let me show you some examples here. So here's some educational stuff people do when they're in virtual reality. You can go and see dinosaurs and go explore a shipwreck or go in outer space or go to Disney World or You know, you could stand on top of Mount Everest. There's some really, really neat stuff. Like, you can fly. You can stand on top of a building, and it's, like, super scary. You know, and I try to tell people, like, I've shown so many demos of virtual reality. Like, I'll spend the first few minutes of a demo, like, showing someone a video VR, like, showing me in it, and they're just kind of like, yeah, because it's 2D. You know, I can show you these pictures on the screen, and you see, like, this dinosaur, and you're like, you know, okay, there's, like, a dinosaur, and you, like, go in there. But when you put on that headset, and you're in the world with the dinosaur, and that dinosaur walks in front of you, it's like you're standing in, like, your living room, and a dinosaur all of a sudden just came up to you. So when you're, like, sword fighting or boxing or, like, playing paintball or, you know, or just running around playing, like, bowling or basketball or tennis or anything in virtual reality, just walking around, it feels real. I tell people, until you put the headset on, you have no idea what it's like. I can tell you over and over again, show you all kinds of pictures and videos. You are not going to get it unless you wear the headset. Trust me. It's a whole different world when someone puts it on, and they put it on and they're walking around and they fall down because they couldn't believe, like, their senses are all messed up. It's kind of funny at first, as long as they don't get hurt. So there are a few different companies releasing these devices. And really the main ones are HTC and Oculus. The HTC has the HTC Vive. They're releasing their second and third gen sets right now. And then we have Oculus that just released the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift. And Oculus is owned by Facebook, for those of you that weren't aware of that. Those are the main companies. There are a few other companies developing this stuff. Like, there's a virtual reality headset for a few different gaming systems and stuff like that. But they're not really as popular or as good as the Oculus and HTC. They're really the two big competitors in this market, taking up the market space. As far as cost, it really, really varies. Like the Oculus Rift Quest, which I think is the best VR headset because it's wireless, it starts at $400, which is just amazing. The headset and hand controllers are $400. But like the best HTC Vive is like over $1,000. So like they can get pricey really quick. Some of the disadvantages of this tech are, first of all, as I just mentioned, the cost. So it can get pricey really quick. We're at a point where like the technology is going to get replaced really quick. Like if you remember in the late 90s buying a computer, like you bought a computer and 3 months later your computer was outdated with like a better model. We're at that point with VR. It's not that fast, but it's pretty much every year there's going to be a new headset. You know, it's like buying like the Apple Watch or a phone like it. But these are like big significant changes. Like we went from wires to no wires with the Oculus Quest. Like that's a big difference. If you want a wired version, it does require a very high-end computer. You know, I have an Alienware computer that's made for virtual reality, and they're expensive. You can't just use like a $400, $500, $600, $700 computer to run VR. You need a pricey machine that has a good video card and has a processor and RAM that's going to be able to handle it. So that's a big disadvantage. Though, if you get the Oculus Quest with no wires, you don't need to worry about that, which is awesome. Another disadvantage is that it can make users sick. What do I mean like that? Well, if you look at the screen here, you can see the difference between a high-resolution image and a blurry image. If you have lag or latency in the headset because you have a bad computer, it's just not working right, that'll help you get sick much faster. I've seen estimates where around 30% of people get sick from wearing virtual reality headsets. A couple of the things to pay attention to with the sickness is, first of all, you can get over it. How do I know that? Because when the military uses this stuff, or like when they like have pilots flying around in like G-force, like they get sick. And you know what they do? They just keep making you do it, and you get over it really quick. So you can get over it. But it's a motion sickness, and it doesn't feel good to have that happen. Like sometimes if I'm on like a roller coaster in virtual reality, it's like I get a little woozy and feel a little weird. Or if I'm like on top of a building and I jump off, because there are some games you can fly. But like it's fun to like jump off because you can't really die in virtual reality. Your avatar does, but you get a little queasy as you're falling down the building. It's a weird feeling. So that's where we are in virtual reality right now. You know, there are app stores and tons of games and apps that you can buy for virtual reality. Some of them are free. Some of the education ones are free, but some of them cost like $30 dollars up. So they can get a little pricey. So you have to know what you want. And I think the big thing that we're missing in VR right now is there's no like blockbuster hit. It's not like I'm going to buy this for this specific game because it's so good. Like, you know, I've said this a bunch of times before. Like in the 80s when I would buy like the Nintendo Entertainment System, I bought it. I didn't buy it for the Nintendo. I bought it because I wanted to play Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda. You know, and like that's the same with like when I bought my Xbox 360, I bought it so that I could play Halo 3. So there isn't that for virtual. It's not like I want to play this game so I have to buy a VR headset. It's like I buy the VR headset and hope that there's some good games out there for it. They're slowly coming and getting better, but there's nothing out there that I'm buying it for just yet. And one of the things I want to talk about is there's a lot of mixed data out there about how much these units are really selling. Like, we don't know. You know, there's been reports out there that, like, in 2017, there was a big slump in the virtual reality market where these headsets were not selling. And then it kind of picked back up. And I really think with the Oculus Quest, it's getting pretty high again. But the big question is, okay, so we see these. And what I like to tell people about these headsets is that when cell phones first came out, they were like these big things in bags, and like they didn't work that great. That's where we are with virtual reality. In like years and years from now, we might be to a point where every single person has this stuff. We're just way far away from it right now. So like some future stuff. This is a person flying, and this is a company that makes a flying, you know, ability to make it feel like you're flying in a VR headset, which I would love to try this because it looks just amazing. You know, and then we have books and the movie Ready Player One, and we're already getting some of this technology, like these treadmills where people can walk. Companies are trying to develop that. The ability to have touch sensors. We already have hand controls, but companies are starting to develop like sensors where you would actually be able to feel. Imagine the haptics, like being able to feel in your hands when you're touching something in VR, and have different senses throughout the body so that it feels like you're walking or moving or wind's blowing or, you know, whatever's happening. You hit a baseball and your hands hurt, like that kind of stuff. That kind of thing in VR is really, really, really cool. Okay, so let me just do a recap. So virtual reality, you know, we have these headsets that we can go in and go into a real virtual world. Really cool technology out there, right? You know, we started with these ideas in the 80s and 90s, you know, lots of science fiction about it, some really bad VR headsets and stuff. Then we just didn't hear anything about it for a long time. All of a sudden, some you know, Oculus Rift and a few other companies started to develop some development headsets, some beta versions. Very slowly, you know, it took years, a few years. We had these beta versions and they developed their first gen headsets, and then they developed their second gen. And, you know, these headsets had a bunch of wires. They took forever to set up and they required a really expensive computer. Now we're on like the between the second and fourth gen, depending on what company we're talking about. And we have headsets with no wires on them anymore. They don't require a computer. And you can just use it. It's what VR was meant to be. And now the future, we're going to start to develop things like the haptics. The glasses are going to get lighter, smaller, more comfortable, definitely not require any computer, definitely not have any wires, bigger spaces that we can work on when we're using this stuff. So some really exciting things are happening, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. When Oculus came out, I was really excited to try out this new one with no wires. And now I'm even more excited for the next gen. So, you know, hopefully you're excited about it too, because it is really cool. And if you haven't tried it and you're watching this saying like, you have to go try it. You don't know what it's like. You just gotta go get in it and try it because it's a lot of fun. Thank you.